Whether it's your first home or your forever home, it's the heart of your celebrations. And at NFM, we want to help you save on every room this season. Shop our huge selection of furniture, appliances, electronics, and flooring. Bring it all together with help from our design experts. With guaranteed low prices and financing options, keep your budget on track. And save time with our pickup and delivery options so that you can make yourself at home where traditions start. Only at NFM.
At Capella University, you'll get support from people who care about your success. From before you enroll to after you graduate, pursue your goals knowing help is available when you need it. Imagine your future differently at capella.edu.
Everybody to the Think Different podcast. That's right, we're here for another episode, another week, but I wanted to change it up a little bit this week. We've been doing the Apple Retail series. If you are interested and thinking about going to work at an Apple retail store, well, guess what? We have a series that we started 2 weeks ago. We had my good friend Cruz come on to talk about a specialist, and last week I talked about a genius. Well, this week we're going to take a break from that because, damn it, we still can't find Frank. Where is Frank, anybody? Anybody know where Frank is? I can't find Frank. But that's okay. We're going to move on. We're going to try to see if the FBI has come up with any new leads. But I did find out, ladies and gentlemen, one lead that they gave me. One lead I think that will definitely help. And that is, I found out that Frank is in Florida. And you know what that means. They're keeping him in Florida to avoid doing the podcast because they don't want him coming home with the damn coronavirus. But it's okay. It's okay. So, we decided to take a break from the series this week, and I thought a great topic would be just to talk about the pros and cons of Apple. But I wanted to get two special people involved with this episode. These are two people that use Apple products on a daily basis. Someone who I've worked for and someone who I just met. And I think it's great that we're going to get two different opinions. One from a guy who I've known since March of 2009, someone who I had worked for years. I've worked with him, and I wanted to get his perspective on why his whole business relies around Apple and how Apple kind of saved him. But also another gentleman who I just met only a few months ago, and how Apple literally changed his life. And I thought, why not? Let's bring our minds together. Let's talk about the pros and the cons of Apple products.
In today's fast-paced world, you need a partner who's always looking out for what's coming next. A team with the expertise to help keep identities, payments, and data secure. One who can help protect your data and networks and secure the digital journey customers want now and in the future. So you can secure what you've built, protect what you're building, and accelerate your growth. Entrust, securing a world in motion. Learn more at entrust.com/podcast.
At Capella University, you'll get support from people who care about your success. From before you enroll to after you graduate, pursue your goals knowing help is available when you need it. Imagine your future differently at capella.edu.
Hey, before you go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen, this episode is sponsored by Zune. Zune is a discontinued line of digital media products by Microsoft. Zune is in the top 1,000 sold digital media players in the world. Listen to all your Napster illegal music right here on this device. Join the more than 2 million Zuners in 2008 today by purchasing your Zune on eBay. Also, you college kids, you could be Zune masters. That's a real thing, by the way. And spread your message on all American college campuses and get free gear and host Zune parties. Join the Zune revolution. All right, everybody, again, welcome back to the Think Different podcast. Special episode today. Again, we're doing the pros and cons of Apple, but I wanted to introduce two friends, two people that I work with on a daily basis. First, I want to introduce someone I've known since 2009 of March. That's right, the old way. I did it the old school British style way, I guess that's how it's called. I have my friend here, Mr. Steve Morowitz.
Hello there, Will. Hello there, everybody.
You're in the same room with me. You're in the same room with me.
Cheers. Hey, Will, how you doing over there?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I just wanted to tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, my name is Steven, as you said, and basically what I do, I guess for a living, is we run a boutique, I guess, genre cult releasing.
Adult entertainment. For people who don't understand.
Well, not only just adult entertainment,
just adult.
But we did get into the business because I'm a second generation owner of a large adult film archive, sexploitation, exploitation, and a lot of adult films, which were produced primarily on the East Coast between the 60s and mid 80s in New York City area. And that's how we essentially started this company, by taking those films and releasing them to digital media. And then fast forward 15, 16 years later, now our focus is much more pinpointed toward, proper film restoration and taking these movies from film with a proper scan and proper restoration and restoring them in the proper aspect ratio with nice color grading, and even doing scratch removal and making these movies in some cases look better than they looked the first day they ever came out in the theater. And that's what the cult sort of following is around, is seeing these old sort of silly movies come back out on these beautiful Blu-rays with beautiful packaging, and that's sort of where we're at.
So think of it like this, and for those, to simple it down, basically if you've watched Jaws in the theater, you got it on VHS, you got it on DVD, but now they have like a 4K UHD copy, and that's basically what you do with adding extras in the end, something that's very exclusive that you can't get.
We'll take films that really don't necessarily mean that much to the success of cinema as a whole, but we treat them as if they're
that quality. They're that quality, yeah. And also with us today, another gentleman who I just started meeting a few months ago, but he's now become like my second best friend here. I'm going to call him Just Jack, just because Just Jack. So Jack, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, I've been working with Steve for, 8 months now, but met him as an Uber driver. He was my passenger, so a little bit of fate thrown in there. My background's photography, formerly educated in New York at a now defunct school, Center for the Media Arts. Was in the first graduating class. That was more than 30 years ago. Since then, video, more photography, studio work, lab work, every corner of the industry. So, and here I am.
All right, so the main reason I got you guys involved with this conversation to talk about the pros and cons of Apple is that's what you guys have been using pretty much for your work life. You for a business, for Steve, and for Jack, even as business himself, but he's been doing it for so long. So Steve, talk a little bit about the pros of why your business went into using Apple devices over Windows.
Okay. Well, pretty simply, around 2001, 2002 is when we all started to, me and the guys that we're working with started to get the idea of, let's take this these VHS or these VHS quality tapes that were also 1-inch tapes, 3/4-inch tapes, just video masters, and we're saying, all right, let's try to put these back. Let's get them on DVD. That in itself is a creative process. There's encoding involved.
You have to get a computer to do this.
Exactly. And the people that essentially, the way the Apple thing started for me was, well, first of all, always coming up in my house growing up, we got Apple. So my brother still has these old Apple Macintosh.
Do you remember your first Apple?
Yeah, it was like the two.
Apple II?
The Apple II. My brother still has them, and they're beautiful. He still has them in New York. He has like a little, in his apartment.
Archive?
He has a little archive for the computers. It's great. But the point is, the guys, Jamie and John, these two guys that I was working with, they already had a shop that they did encoding, which is essentially just, compressing audio and video, and they did it for companies already. So they were already set up as a Mac shop, you know what I'm saying? And so they really had a lot of the things that we were doing. We were working heavily in Photoshop. We were using DVD Studio Pro to author the movies. And it was just basically all the computers were Macs. Now, there was 1 or 2 PCs in the shop, and I think as still today, we use those computers more for the business function, like QuickBooks and shipping and inventory and stuff like that. But the Apple always lent itself, even in just a very simple way, towards the creative type of computer. You know what I'm saying? It was always like that for us, and we really always just had a really, really great experiences, even from when we could remember. Everything seemed to be more, get it at the store, buy it at the store, unpack it, plug it in, and play.
Right.
There wasn't a lot of downtime with the Apples, and and again, I always know that we mentioned before that how there's a lot of people out there that'll say, oh well, everyone I know that uses an Apple, I don't know anybody who has a PC, I don't know anybody who has an Android, but yet
Right.
half the world still has them and uses them. But like with our business, it always ended up toward being with Apple and being with Mac computers, and as time went on, we ended up sort of evolving with Apple. We got the first iMacs. We still have a Blueberry out there.
Yeah.
The real ones, and we just, as you can see around here, I mean, we are literally a Mac shop. I mean, there's Macs everywhere.
Yeah, so just to give a breakdown of what's in this area right now that we're in, we have 3 Macs in this area. We still have the Mac Pro before it went to that trash can model, which thank God we didn't go to that. We have one of the old iMacs with those black backgrounds, like it was more like where it was like the first Intels. We have a more recent one that
27-inch Retina.
27-inch Retina screen
Most of which
here.
are very old.
Yeah. These are older machines, and they're still kicking. By the way, I mean
10 years.
Yeah, he has. Steve has the MacBook Pro 15-inch that still has a CD drive in it. That's how old.
And that's
that is.
and that's
and
my
it's still-
second one in 20 years
Yeah,
now. So
yeah. But think about it. He's never switched these out. And he has old ones here that are the G3, the blue G3 one that he has. He has the G5. So he has some really old machines in here that I think are extremely valuable. Even if you wanted to turn it into a fish tank or something, it'd be worth something.
Yeah.
Jack, talk a little bit about your pros of why you went the Apple route for you.
Well, it wasn't even a choice. It just seemed like the industry I was in, that's what was the natural direction, coming from photography. I ended up in a dark room in a publishing company. The publishing company was going desktop, and I was literally the first person in the company to get an Apple.
Do you remember what type of Apple it was?
Oh, I don't,
That's
but
all right.
it was square.
Okay, square. Okay, you got a square Apple.
Yeah.
it was way before those.
It was
Yes.
it was a long time. As a matter of fact, I can remember the Apple tutorial where it was like, click your mouse on this item and drag it into the trash and then empty the trash.
And that's the
I
first
don't
when interfaces were introduced, because remember, interfaces, that was new
Yeah.
into the world. Like the Macintosh introduced this interface that they basically stole from Xerox.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember, by the way, we had a Macintosh growing up. It was in our kitchen, and I remember the one game on it. We only had one game. It was called Transylvania. Do you remember this?
No, I was
it was wicked.
born
We
in
thought it was the
85.
greatest thing in the world. It might have been before then, but it was like, the little, like yours, like the little Mac.
Yeah.
It's like this little
Yeah.
Macintosh. It was like,
So going forward for you, so you were the first one introduced.
Yeah, so they gave me a Mac. I literally taught the company, not that it was any great accomplishment, because dragging something into the trash is fairly easy, and everything else is just as easy, I think, on a Mac, and that's the beauty of it. But then I taught myself Photoshop, and basically I started myself really on a whole new path, which I'm thankful for, because I wouldn't have a career today in photography if it wasn't for a Mac.
And it's kind of similar to me. I went when I was in high school, TV Tech 3 class. They finally I was learning linear editing systems. We talked about it the other day about that, where I learned how to do the old-fashioned way. You put everything's on a reel, you tape it to another reel, which is the old linear way of doing everything on the board. And then I learned the non-linear way, which was Final Cut Pro, and that's what got me into the Apple. And that's when I said, when I'm going to college, I wanted to do that, and I needed an Apple product. So that was my introduction to the Apple, because at home we had PCs like everybody else did, so that was no choice. To kind of lean towards Apple Store, since that's what this podcast is more related to, I want to speak from your experiences from a positive or negative side of an Apple Store, of you going there. Any experiences that stick out to you? I mean, Steve, is there anything?
Yeah, well, definitely. Well, first off, I just want to leading up to this exact thing, I just want to add one more thing, because I think it is actually the crux of sort of what your podcast is all about. I will say that having other professionals, either younger than me or older than me, around me for the last 20 years that have been Mac proficient, you're one of them, for example, working at the Apple Store for 10 years, 11 years, and then, for example, Jamie, who was my partner and still is my very close friend, just all Apple. So I want to let you know, when you're surrounded by Apples and you're surrounded by people that have that knowledge, whether it be in programs like Photoshop thing, and you're sort of shadowing them, you learn a lot. And that actually, if I didn't have a lot of that around me, I probably wouldn't be where I am today, with Apples. And I will say, even just with stuff that isn't the things that people would do every day, but like file allocation, things that you showed me, it's made things a lot easier. So, for example, going into the stores, when something goes wrong here, a lot of times you would say to me, hey, bring it in. You'd make an appointment. I had a little bit of a head start. I never had an issue ever. I love the Apple stores. The only issue I ever had, which is sort of the whole flip side, was Apple's with their iPhones. So that was always a bad experience in a store. And after a while, actually, and that was just me, I stopped going to the Apple store when it came to the phone, and I would just go to Verizon because they were just taking care of the phone. And it wasn't
why
because
it was because
I
I'm trying to figure out like why would
a
Verizon store is better or it
I'll tell you why. I don't know if I have the exact reason, but it always came down to they couldn't. They'll give you the thing you could download, but they couldn't do the numbers for you. You know, they couldn't program the numbers for you. It was always a thing where Apple couldn't, but I would go around the corner and Verizon did. You know that mall, the Verizon's right around the corner of the Field Mall. But I mean, as far as like going in, getting a genius to work with me, having an issue or something, I would say that probably 99% of the times they're solved and for me quicker than I could have ever imagined. You know what I'm saying? Very, very good. I mean, I don't know a lot of people that have bad experiences in Apple because I feel like if you're
I could beg to differ.
Well, you know what though? Maybe those are the people who aren't getting
in front of the bar or behind the bar.
Well, maybe they're not getting their warrant. You know what I'm saying? I always get my Apple Care.
Right.
I know that what I'm getting into, you know what I'm saying? But I know everyone has bad experiences and good experiences, but I haven't had a lot of bad experiences. I really haven't. And actually, the greatest thing about an Apple store is when you want to go to purchase something because you go in there and there's 1,000 people in the store, but you want to buy something. Hey, Joe, can you help out? And somebody comes right out because they're always wanting to sell stuff. So I haven't had any bad experiences with it. Just the phone. Just when it had to do with like getting a new iPhone, or it would always be a cluster. It would always be a cluster in the store, and I'd always be like, "But it's your phone." And a lot of times they'd even say, "Well, you could just go to Verizon or something." But that's really the only thing I can think of, and that's more for just giggles.
I would hate to make that like the thing to do because I honestly think, in my opinion, Apple stores give the best experience possible. But if you want me to be a suck up to you and just give you a new phone because that's what you want, that's not how Apple works.
That's not what I'm referring to.
I know that, but there's some people that are like that.
I have the reverse experience. I hate going into a phone store and waiting for them to hook up my phone and get it going. But I think Apple is all about the experience. Quite frankly, it's the Disney World of electronics, and that's really what it's about. Because really, they're not doing that much for you in the store. They're selling you stuff. You can get it anywhere. They're helping you. Apples are already very easy to use.
There's no commission for the specials either. They're not trying to sell you to make money.
Yeah, so it's about
I don't know.
experience.
I just feel like, I guess for me too, and I guess I feel like it was like 2 or 3 times. Would never go to Verizon. Why would I go to Verizon for an iPhone? And then after a while, I just went around and I'd be like, it's so much easier. They did it for 5 minutes. They make me stand there. And sometimes I have to say, this is fair. Sometimes you get not everything's equal. Sometimes you get a newer employee, someone who's not, as you know, at Apple, because they're always like turning out. So that's could also have been what is. But
there's a lot of training though. I can tell you that they try to stop. I mean, from the last time I was there, they try to give them 2 to 3 to 4 weeks before they're really out there. So they really get a lot of shadow time. So
also
to avoid things like
one
that.
other thing I do want to bring up, and it makes it all fair and level-headed, one of the things I also want to bring up is sometimes, and you can never compare it, the Apple stores they're out the door just on a regular day. Verizon's empty. So sometimes it's just a matter of not wanting to wait 3 hours, even though it will only take, you know what I mean? So it's just really quick. But I mean, there's nothing like that. You know, that experience. And what I love too about the Apple stores that you just don't get anywhere else is you go and you buy something, right? And the guy comes out and there's these wooden tables, and they just take that little key. You know, they undo this drawer on the table and there's all the new stuff in there. And you know, it's just
not even like
Fort
that.
Knox.
Yeah, it's just
think about it. The cash registers are hidden, and we, there's through our what we call the Easy Pay machine, unlocks it wirelessly. We don't even use the key anymore. Like that's how sophisticated it is. And there's certain drawers in certain areas, and they're numbered, and we have to go to the right drawer. Because imagine you open up the wrong drawer, and this cash is out there. But they definitely limit that. So
it's the most beautiful. It's a beautiful store, like you said. It's like Crazy Eddie on steroids. You know what I mean? It's like
one on Fifth Avenue is beautiful.
Yeah, they're beautiful. They're beautiful, like what they offer, and like I do appreciate the products as a whole. I always said to me, and I'm wrong, but I always said, how do you live life without an Apple? Like an iPhone, an iPad, thing. I have all of them. I have all of them. My entire family.
The ecosystem is what we say ties everything together. And by the way, if you want to check out my Fifth Avenue, I went there back last winter. I have it on our YouTube channel right now. So check out Think Different Podcast on YouTube. We're on there right now and have that. Jack, talk about, is there any cons or anything that you could think of? Because people like the bad stuff about Apple that they really don't like.
I'm just inches away from me is an iPad that is a brick, and it's going to be a brick. And
now, whose fault is that?
Not mine. But
who is it? The user's fault?
Yes,
or is it
the
Apple's
user's fault? But you know what? Let's talk about the dreaded Apple ID.
I love to. I'll defend it.
Holy moly! Yeah, I mean, come on, man. There's got to be something easier than that.
Okay, so what would you like them to do?
I really don't know.
Okay.
I'm not in IT.
This is the biggest thing I get when I.
One question I have, though,
those.
how does that differ from, I know the Apple ID it comes up for everything. How does it differ from when you sign into Chase or Bank of America and you have to put in a password?
You know
Same
why?
thing.
Because you set it up once, you set it and forget it.
Right.
And then
Right.
you change your internet company, and
Oh,
now you
right.
don't have your email
Right, that doesn't happen with your
anymore,
bank accounts, but it
and,
happens.
and now you have to prove who you are,
Yep.
and and
But
so on.
you got to remember the Apple IDs. They're synced to everything that you do on this phone. This includes a credit card for your app store, contacts, notes apps, which by the way have security on them, which could have information on there. Because I can tell you right now, I put stuff on my iPhone, like my social security number for my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And people would think I'm crazy for doing that. Well, the reason why is because I trust in the fact that Apple's not looking at it, but also number two, the Notes app has a lock on that too. So, and Apple's not going to unlock it
goes
for
into
me
the cloud
because
right? No,
it does. It
yeah.
goes to their cloud, which again is the two-factor authentication is very hard to get around. But when Apple ID is probably the biggest thing we saw in the stores was, and I would say yes, people could see this as a con, but I also look at it as if you're going to forget about it, that's where, like I went to my uncle's house the other day. He has a Rolodex, right, of all his passwords for everything. He wrote it down. And I tried it, and it actually worked. I was shocked. I was like, okay, so he didn't, they changed it. They updated it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And I always think it's very smart when you're going to do an Apple ID password, always put down the date you did it or changed it. It's a small thing, but it'll trigger something in your head.
What's your biggest complaint? Because the fact
Apple
that
ID.
if you
Because
forget
you
it, you got to go through hoops to
To get around it.
Yeah.
to get around it, or that
If
you have to put it
can.
in every time you want to do something.
That too.
I hear you, but I always
Right.
think it's safety. I always think I just feel like
get
it's
it.
safety, but I follow you.
Yeah, I get that, but it's
It's like you. I put my notes. I'll put crazy things in my
Yeah.
notes. I never think about it, but I'll just be
He just
dictating I guess.
Trust me, they made it easier, but also one thing I will tell you when it comes to the Apple ID you were working with, the Apple ID is not up to date to what Apple's standard is.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Why don't we have the finger on the Apple ID? The finger, print. Why doesn't that work for Apple ID?
It technically does though. There's a setting that you turn on inside of your iPhone that anytime you're going to make purchases using your Apple ID, it's tied to either your Face ID or your
But can you get into
Touch
your settings and with that thumbprint?
Well, I can on this MacBook Pro I'm
In
recording
other words,
because
a thing that says View Apple
I have
ID, can you use the thumb instead of putting your Apple
my
ID?
passwords are stored in iCloud, so my passwords are linked there.
Mm-hmm.
So when I go to, let's say I go to iCloud.com, my ID pops in there, but I have to use my finger on my Touch ID on my
Mm-hmm.
computer to unlock it. So you don't have the capability on that iPad.
Mm-hmm.
So there are things that are missing
Right.
I
out
get
because
it.
of the age.
That I
The
got.
age has to do with, I think the age has to do with your Apple product
Mm-hmm.
and your Apple ID.
Mm-hmm.
So today now what they do a little differently is everything's tied to another Apple device. So let's say we have family sharing, right? So family sharing links some products together.
Mm-hmm.
Someone else's device could help me unlock my Apple ID or my product.
Okay.
So there are ways around it,
Yeah.
but again, this comes down to educational. This comes down to people knowing how to do stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't ask those questions to yourself, you're not going to know how to do something like that. But for someone who hasn't touched an Apple ID in for a long time, yes, there's a lot of hoops to get around it.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that. And I think Apple has done strides to fix it. But if you're still stuck 5 years ago, you got to catch
Right.
up.
And part of what you're saying is basic common sense, because something that's brand new that has thumb recognition or
Right.
face
Right.
recognition, there's something that 10 years ago that didn't even
Didn't have that.
You know, they
Right.
don't even have.
It's a
but-
problem that will
Yeah.
play itself out.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Right. Is there any cons, Steve, that you about Apple product? I can tell you the biggest con that for me from Apple standpoint is when you update, you can't go backwards, and that's something they just stop
Definitely.
you completely. An example is best example we use every day: Final Cut Pro. You can't go back to a previous version, and you have to update all the other versions of your library. So this goes with, by the way, this goes with iMovie. This goes with your Photos app. So it's really anything with a library file has to work with the most recent one. So and right now, like if we had a good example, if I upgraded our machine to a newer version of an operating system, you can't go backwards, or if you do, you have to wipe the whole machine out. So and even your Time Machine backup won't technically bring it all back because it's updated for a newer version. It's like they really try to make sure you don't
Y2K
go
all
back.
over again.
Yeah, they don't make you go backwards. So that's my con. I don't know if you have what con.
I think that's kind of. I think I'm in your ballpark. I don't have. I'm always. To be blunt, I'm learning new stuff all the time, even if it's a command shift or something. You know,
Right.
to do. I'm always learning something different and new. But I don't have too many. Every computer will what's that word? We'll have a spool or buffer, and you'll have to quit and restart.
Everyone
you always
has
get
that,
yeah. So I don't have too many. To be honest, we have a lot of Apple Macs here. They've been around a while. We don't have a ton of problems. I mean, Jack brings up a good point. We have our newest computer, which is which is that. Well, it's not cheap. Apples are not cheap. The good ones, and we loaded that one up.
Price is probably the biggest.
And I love it. I love the screen on there. I'm losing my vision, so that's a great computer to work on. But even Jack mentioned, I don't want to hear anything's wrong with that computer. But even a few months ago, as he's working on it now every day, because it sat here for a long time, we used it a little bit. But now that he's using it every day, now that there's a 20 terabyte drive with it, now that there's a lot of 4K footage on it, now we're starting to see things slow up a little, but it's not the computer. It's the other things that kind of go into it.
There's also limitations on depending on what you bought for the time.
I don't have a lot of negatives.
I mean, think about it. We have an 8-year-old MacBook Pro. We have 2K and 4K footage on we had to get a special type of drive for this to work because at the time the drives couldn't support it. Even Thunderbolt couldn't support it. We had to get a very special card to be installed to the MacBook Pro for it to work. And that was the only way that these projects can run because they were uncompressed, 8, 10-bit, color corrected files, which were not close to being playable on there, and that's the kind of craziness of that. But think about it,
there's a lot of
8 years of age, and it still can pump out 4K, 2K footage.
Yep. Well, if there's a good operator on it, because it doesn't work for me, but it starts to work for you. Well, you might have a lot more cons because you've been dealing with the Apple's on a different level, a lot of scanning, a lot of art files.
You know what? They perform beautifully.
Right.
I honestly, if I focused on the handful of things that bothered me, I'd be a cynic.
Right. That's what I mean.
They're just so beautiful. They're perfect machines. They came just in time for the future.
Right.
They're right on time.
You know what's frustrating too, and this is sort of off topic, but has everything to do with PCs and Macs.
Right.
We got two PCs here. We use one to ship, basically our ship station, and we use one for our QuickBooks.
QuickBooks, yeah.
And whenever I have to type on it, I'm automatic. I'm the most uncoordinated. I don't know what it is, but my Mac, my keyboard, just so great. Everywhere. But those PCs, you see me, and I'm going one finger like a tick, tick, tick. I don't know what I'm doing.
To me, design makes a difference.
Yeah.
You're paying for quality. I mean, you think about, so Windows, you probably have to upgrade, every 2-3 years probably. And you're looking at, like I said, Macs here that have been here for years. It still work fine. Mm-hmm. They still can do everything until the day they come where they just can't do what you need to do anymore. That's when you upgrade. And some people I've dealt with, of course, are, it's broken. The machines. I mean, hey, Macs break, guys. I don't know if you know this.
Yep.
On the if you was listening to the podcast,
rarely.
But they still break. But for me, it's a more common occurrence because I was a Genius technician, so I dealt with it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So they do break. I mean, a lot of people do break them themselves, and of course, they're expensive to fix. You're talking about a screen on the machine I have right now, a 15-inch MacBook Pro 2016. This is a $680 screen to fix. Wow. If I crack it or if something goes on it.
Yeah.
So it's crazy expensive to fix. So you just got to protect the investment. If you're going to think of it as like a Lamborghini, you treat that like a Lamborghini. And that's the best method. Yeah. So is there anything else, guys, you want to leave off with? Because I think we got some good knowledge from the business side from you both on how you use the Apple products on a daily basis. Steve, you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, the only thing I actually want to add is something that you just reminded me of is that one thing that's positive that I could say really positive is that we've been with Apple or the products of Apple long enough that we've seen them go from, the big, thick drives and having all those things. Now, you're buying these computers, there's no disk drive, there's nothing, it's got 3 Thunderbolts, there's no USB, not being a little bit facetious here, but the point I'm making is that it's changed, as you said, the way we work. So now all of a sudden we got a disk, for example. Sometimes we have to use like Handbrake or VLC or one of these programs to capture Handbrake, to get a little bit of a disk, to rip a thing. Well, we don't have, on some of the computers, there's nowhere to put a disk anymore. Yep. So it's just changing. Everything is changing. And again, that's like you had said. Didn't you mention yesterday? Like we were talking about. For example, we use DVD Studio Pro forever to author, and even Adobe Encore. We're realizing now that none of those programs they both still work, but they're not supported anymore. They don't even sell them anymore. And you said because it's a direct relationship to the market and what's we're streaming now. We're not so it's just. And again, this is a very little thing, but it's just something that I'm we're adapting with it, and so in a weird way we're growing with the Apple products as well. You know what I'm saying? Does that have a drive? No, that one definitely doesn't have a drive.
No, it doesn't have a drive. No. So I want to thank you guys for coming along with this interview. It's been awesome to be a part of it. It's good that I get to hang out with you guys every day now. I haven't discussed why because there are reasons why I'm available.
Get to that another
episode. But right now, I'm just glad to be back in this environment. And it's for Steve, for everything that we do here, where can people find us or find you guys?
The best place for anybody to go check us out would be just to go to our website.
Yep.
Distripix.com, and of course you can check us out on Facebook at distripix.com. DISTRIBPIX.com.
Yep. So
and the company's been around since the 60s.
So if you guys are looking for a wonderful Christmas gift for your parents, trust me, you can find some really good
and
stuff.
there's great collectibles and posters and film kits. It's not just DVDs and Blu-rays. It's a whole bunch
And
of
for
stuff.
those who don't know, on this, I actually edited a lot of the extras, trailers, things on these DVDs that are on there, especially some of the really cool ones that we did. There's a collection for Riley Metzger up there. You guys should check that out. There's some really good stuff on there that you get in the package. And you wouldn't think adult entertainment would be presented this way, but it's actually really neat. And it's not just about the porn. It's about the story. It's about how it was made and how even old school New York. It's old school New York. And it's old school New York.
History, pop culture, the way taxis look, the way the streets look, the way the buildings look, the way the street signs look. Everything's complete. The way the fashion was, the way people spoke.
Old Times Square.
Old Times Square before it became Disney, as you would say.
That's right.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. Every Friday we have a new episode of the Think Different podcast, and we appreciate you guys subscribing every single week. And please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. And God damn it, we have to find my partner Frank, because we have no idea where he is, but I know the FBI is on the case, and we know he's in Florida. We have to get him back to New Jersey. Everyone, have a great weekend.
Thank you.